All right, your boy Chilla here. Welcome back to, I don't think I actually named what I called the application in the last video, which is, that's on brand, right? But the name of it is Pantrio, which, it's like Agario or whatever, github.io, but it's for your pantry. So it's Pantrio. I looked and the domain is taken, unfortunately. So it's Pantrio, but in spirit only. When my parents access it, it'll probably be like something.planetchili.net because I don't want to buy another domain. But yeah, so here is the basic. Here's the folder. The name is Vagrancy because it's a portmanteau of Vagrant and Ansible, because that's the things that I'm building it on to start off with here. Yeah, so let's take a look at Vagrancy, which is actually Pantrio. So we got the Vagrant file, and this is a lot more. If you watched my not my Netflix and chill, that's a different video. My Nginx and chill. I showed you a very simple Vagrant file. This is something more similar to what I use when I'm making stuff for work. So there's a lot more to it. First of all, there's this. It loads a YAML file. I don't know how you say YAML, but I'm going to say it like that. So it loads a YAML file, and this is like an environment file. So you would commit this Vagrant file to GitHub or whatever, and other people would download it. But different people on their own machines might want to have different settings. They might want to use different IP addresses for the virtual machine, or they might want to use different host names or whatever. So that stuff is per person. You don't want to commit that to the GitHub. So I created an environment file that is loaded from the Vagrant file, and that can configure environment-specific things, the amount of memory that's used by the virtual machine, etc., etc. So normally you don't have to override a lot of these options, but let's take a look. And this is what it looks like, vlocal.conf.yaml. So the project name, Pantrio. The host name is panter.io. Here's the IP address that we're going to be using. And I set the memory to 2048, which is actually, I think, the default, so it doesn't really matter, but whatever. Doesn't matter. So let's take a look at top to bottom, this Vagrant file. There's a lot of stuff in it, but it's good to go over. I debated, by the way, like building this file from nothing on video, but because the way it works, the workflow for making a new, Vagrant file or making a new, like an Ansible playbook, you have to run it many times, and then something will go wrong, and then you'll have to run it again, often from the beginning. So it would make a video that's maybe like 10 hours long. Don't want to do that. That's not very good content. So believe me when I say I'm saving you a lot of annoyance by just giving you the end result here and going over it with you. So we got a variable here, project name, defaults to default. That will come in, from here, project name. What else here? So we try to load the environment file. If it doesn't exist, we're going to give an error. And we'll set, we'll just set this lconfig, which is a dictionary, to just an empty dictionary. And that is used, well, basically this is used as the configuration variables that are used down here. But we'll give a message if this file doesn't exist, because it should exist. Yeah. Okay. This is a little function that will override the values in here with defaults. What is this? Set project name. So this sets the project name variable here. Sets it to whatever is in this configuration if it exists. Sure. Okay. Yeah. So then here we're overriding values in here if they don't exist. So this YAML file is loaded into a dictionary, which is basically like a hash table or an associative array or whatever you want to call it in your language of choice. And if those values did not exist in here, we want to set defaults for them. So this is the default, IP address that's going to be used for the virtual machine. This is the default host name, which is based on the project name. You can interpolate strings like this in Ruby, and so on and so forth. Setting defaults, bunch of defaults. Okay, good. So what's this? Okay, so this is a neat little piece of code. It installs Vagrant plugins if they don't exist on the machine. So I can give it a list of plugins here, and if I wanted to, I could put this also in the environment or something, but it doesn't. I just like to put it in here. They should be the same for everyone who clones this thing, so that's fine. So what plugins do we have? The host manager manages the host names that we put in our host file on the machine. I showed this in Nginx and Chill. So we can give basically fake domain names that we use for development, that we don't actually have the registered domain name, but we can use it for our development environment, and it makes things easier. And this automatically registers and removes those entries from the host file for us. VB-guest updates the VirtualBox guest additions, which is for stuff like sharing files between the host and the guest operating system. So we have like synchronized folders into our virtual machine. VB-guest manages that, and this plugin makes sure that we have the most update version that is compatible with the stuff that is in our actual VirtualBox. Vagrant Cache. So this apparently allows us to cache things like apt packages. When the package manager that you use to download stuff on Ubuntu or whatever, when you're installing programs, instead of having to download that, every time we destroy a virtual machine and build a new one up, that virtual machine loses its cache. So it has to download those packages from the internet every time. This allows us to cache those packages on our Windows machine. So the first time we download, sure, it'll download from the package managers from the internet. But the second time we create a virtual machine and we install that stuff, it will download it directly from on our Windows machine. So it'll be a lot faster and it'll use less internet bandwidth. So this was very useful for me when developing the Ansible playbook, because I had to, like I said, I had to do it many times over while I worked out all the kinks, and this made the process faster. And NFSD is a plugin that will give you a driver for the NFS file sharing file system, and that allows us to use the NFS file sharing on Windows, which is normally not available. And that is good because if you don't have NFS file sharing, you get a lot of problems where stuff like npm just doesn't work. It'll fail because of files being locked from the Windows side and the guest operating system not being aware of that. And that's very bad. That's very bad news bears. I hate it. So these are our plugins. If they do not exist on the Windows system, they will be installed. And once they've all been installed, the Vagrant command, Vagrant up, will be restarted so that it can run with all these plugins available. And that's it. Okay, so we're done that plugin stuff. Now, we set a bunch of base information about our Vagrant box. What is the operating system? What is the box that we're going to be using? The base box. Ubuntu Bionic, which is 18 point whatever. I'm not using 20, which is Focal Fossa, or whatever, however you pronounce that. Bullshit. Because it doesn't work, basically, Vagrant will install Ansible onto the Ubuntu image automatically for us, auto-magically. But they don't have that support for 20 yet, even though 20's been out for like a long time. So, yeah, we'll use 18, it doesn't matter. We'll set the name of the virtual machine, which is just v dash the name of the project. We will set the boot timeout to whatever has been configured here, which is default 240 seconds. Should be plenty. We don't want it to check for updates to the base box. No, just don't update my shit. Leave it the way it is. I don't want any surprises. Now we set up the network that will be used to communicate between the host and the guest. And so it's a private network. We can do port mapping, but generally we don't need it. We just need to get configure an IP address on a private network that is only accessible from our Windows machine, not accessible from the outside world. And here is some stuff for the hostname management plugin. We want to enable it. Sure, manage host, manage guest. That'll put the host names into the guest operating system as well, I believe. Ignore private IP. No, we want to do it for private IP. And we can also set aliases. So we can actually have multiple host names set for the same IP address. And I do this for some of my stuff at work, but it will not be necessary for this project. Next. What's next in here? Okay, so now we set the sharing of synchronized folders. We want to unshare the default /vagrant. We don't use it. The main shared folder is going to share into HTML. This is where our Laravel project is going to go. Lots of options. These options work nicely for NFS. They help to prevent problems with programs like npm, which is manages your software, your source code packages for Node, JavaScript stuff and TypeScript, and also problems that arise with Composer, which manages your PHP packages. We also synchronize, we share a folder Ansible, and this is the stuff that is used for provisioning, for initially setting up our server, for installing all the things that we want, like Nginx, like PHP, like MySQL, etc. And this is gonna be fully automated, which is very sexy. So what other options for the underlying provider of the virtual machine, which is VirtualBox? Set the memory, set the GUI. We could also set things like the number of CPUs. Don't care. This is for, what is it called? Vagrant Cashier, I believe. So yeah, scope caching to box. So it caches per box. It doesn't have a central cache. For example, we set our box as Ubuntu Bionic 64. But if we had a different box, that box would not share cache with this one. You know what I mean? If you don't know what I mean, it doesn't really matter. Don't worry about it. Okay, so now here is the commands that will actually provision the machine. These commands are run only once when you initially do a Vagrant up on an empty machine. The first one here runs the provisioner called prep.yaml. And prep.yaml, let's go into here. It installs some packages that are needed by Ansible. So these are like additional optional commands that you can install into Ansible. General, community.general, and community.mysql are the ones we're going to install here. And if these commands aren't available when you run your main Ansible thing, it'll just error out before doing anything. And there is a way, apparently a way for this to be done automatically. So you can have a file called requirements.yaml. You can list the collection that you need, and it should install these before running your playbook, but it doesn't work. It does not work on Ansible, at least with Vagrant in the local configurations. I just haven't been able to get it working, and I've looked online, and I'm not alone. So the easiest way I've found to do this is just to run one provisioning run to set up the Ansible itself, and then another provisioning run to actually set up your server. So Ansible works on things like playbooks, and there are more layers of organization. There are roles which can have multiple playbooks, as I understand it. I'm not an expert on Ansible, and I'm not going to organize things very well. I'm just doing it to get it done. So I've got one playbook. Yeah, that sets everything up, and then this playbook is what sets up our server, basically. So main.yml. So Ansible playbooks are also YML, so very simple. Quick little caffeine break there. And we just, yeah. So we say, okay, we want to run this stuff, these tasks, we want to run them on all the hosts. Name of this, I guess this playbook is Ravel opt setup become. This means do we want to run as super user, I believe, or whatever user that we specify for become. But I think it defaults to root. So yeah, we want to be root when we're installing software. And then we just do a lot of the stuff that I showed you in Nginx and Chill. We add the repository for the latest versions of PHP. We install Nginx. We install PHP. We're going to be using 7.4. I could actually go with 8 here, but I'm not going to. I'm just thinking to myself now, like, do I want to go with 8? Because I know 7.4 works. If I go with 8, I might find out, oh, this doesn't work. And that would be annoying. But if it did work, PHP 8 is pretty sexy. So I'm going to try, well, let's try with 8. You know what? Let's just do it. You know, F it, we're doing it live, as a wise man once said. Okay, so I think this will work for 8. And, yeah. We'll see if it works. So I'm going to have to destroy, I actually, in anticipation of this, I spun the machine up already. I'll have to destroy that machine and spin it up again with 8. But that's fine. So install Redis, install Composer. Supervisor, this, if we need it, I'll tell you what we need it for when the time comes. But this basically allows us to run other programs and manage them automatically. Yeah, we'll probably need it for the WebSocket stuff. Node.js app key. Yeah, so here we gotta install node.js. I have it set at 11. This is probably for work. I think 12 is the newest. What is the newest version of Node? Don't open Chrome. If I open Chrome, I will immediately, all my pornographic links will immediately be disclosed and doxed. So, latest version of Node. 14. October 2020. Wait. 14 is the LTS version. Let's use the LTS version. We'll be a little, what's the word? Conservative? Yeah, that's the word. Because I don't like Node. I want to be on the cutting edge of PHP, but Node can suck my balls. Node.js. Yeah, install MySQL. We need the Python extension for MySQL because Vagrant runs on Python, and we want Vagrant to create, not Vagrant, Ansible. We want Ansible to create the database, destroy the anonymous accounts if they exist, and create an account that can connect to our database in MySQL that'll be used for our stuff. Then here later on, we'll put some commands in that pull our actual web application from GitHub and install it. But we don't have it yet, so we don't have those commands. And then here we set up Nginx, we set up the configs for it, and we reload it. Okay, so that's all of it. That's all the stuff. Now let's run it. All right, so we go into Bash here. And I'm gonna go cd vagrancy. And we're gonna go vagrant destroy. So we're gonna kill our current box, which was done with PHP 7.4. We're gonna get the new hotness, which is PHP 8.0, probably. Okay, so how do we do this? Well, we just run vagrant up. We run vagrant up, and it's gonna take a while. And because first of all, it has to update. Well, the thing that takes a long time is updating all the packages and installing the newest version of the VB guest editions. So that is what generally takes the long time before running our Ansible thing. But I'll probably just cut out the dead air and, you know, just kind of show you guys the important stuff. All right, I think the additions have finally installed. Does a lot of things. So it actually has to like build them from source and stuff like that. But yeah, here we go. Okay, so we're installing Ansible now. Here comes the magic. I have to turn off my my chest in the other window. All right, so it's installing Ansible. It shouldn't take that long. It's just, you know, just a Python thing. And then we should see it run the first playbook in which it installs some additional packages into Ansible, modules, if you will. Yeah, running Ansible playbook. Here we go. Install community.general. Riveting. The suspense is killing me. If this craps out, it'll probably crap out when we try to install PHP. Maybe because the version that I specified isn't good or whatever. I don't see how it shouldn't be. And we install community.mysql. Okay, here we go. Now, running. So here we go. We add repository for PHP. That's adding the Andrej repository. I don't know. Maybe it'll also update stuff. Installing Nginx. Shouldn't take too long to install that, I don't believe. Okay, and error. Okay, install PHP. Okay, so yeah, so beautiful. We did exactly the problem that I expected. No failed package PHP. JSON has no installation candidate. JSON has no installation candidate. Does that package not exist? Is it now just built into PHP 8 now? Well, let's see. No installation candidate. Let's see if anyone else has run into this problem. Copy. So this is what I said about why it takes so long to get the build script up and running. There's a lot of trial and error. But we shouldn't have to rebuild the entire machine for this. We should just be able to start it and it'll go from where it left off. JSON has no... All right, so I just want to know, like, why. Probably... Yeah, okay. You do not need to install PHP 8 JSON as is now included by default. So that's probably why it doesn't exist as a package on the package server. In which case, what we want to do is go into here, find JSON, and get rid of them. Okay, so now we want to run this bad boy again. We also want to make sure, well, it's already up. The server is running. I could vagrant SSH into it right now. But we want to run the provisioner again because it didn't work the first time. So we go provision. Now the beauty of this Ansible stuff is the commands or the scripts or the playbooks or whatever tasks. If you write them correctly, they're idempotent. So you can run them once or you can run them a million times and the result will be the same. You won't get errors. So there's no harm in running these commands over again because they won't do anything and they'll end really quickly. And you can see here, this stuff finished very quickly as well because it was already installed. It just says okay, okay, okay. And now we're installing PHP. So far we haven't gotten an error and that is that's very promising. Install PHP might take a while. I don't know, there might be some building by source involved in the Xdebug part of it. I don't believe there is though. I believe it's all just coming from the package manager, but we'll see. And if it takes a very long time, I'll just cut it out. In the meanwhile, I'm going to play some more chess. Well, that didn't take too long at all. We're on Redis, that was fast. Install Composer, this should be very quick as well. Supervisor, no problem. Supervisor is also, I believe, written in Snec. Oh, Node.js. So this one, we also changed the version. So that might cause an error, but it didn't cause an error, at least not at this stage. And this other stuff I've already tested, so MySQL should run very well. And then other stuff here, very fast. Nginx, all the configuration has been installed, and we are in business, ladies and gentlemen. We've got it all going. We're in PHP version 8.0. Vagrant SSH into the machine, and things should be good. Yeah, good stuff. All right. PHP, or is it V or is it like a capital V? Yeah, maybe it's a small V. Maybe it's version. Ah, here we go. PHP 8.0.1, Zend engine with Xdebug 3.0.2. It's all good. All right, so I think that's a good place to end the video here. We have most of the stuff that we need to start off with installed here. Next step is going to be, because I mean, if we try to visit our web page, we shouldn't get anything. Let me just try it here for science. So I believe the web page was Pantrio, and we get bad gateway, and that's fine because well, let me show you. I didn't actually show this off. So during the installation script here, one of the main things we do is we copy this file from this assets folder into sites available, and then we create the symlink that enables it. And this is, you know, your Nginx setup here. Root is HTML Pantrio public. This doesn't exist yet, so that's why we're getting that error. Another thing we can talk about a little bit, maybe in the next video, we'll talk about why this is set up the way it is. But yeah, so things are set up. We still can't access because we have to install our Laravel application. That's what we're going to do in the next video. Until then, have a good one.